Aaliyah Garrison tugged her hoodie over her head, sinking into the rigid plastic chair near her gate at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. Her backpack wedged between her sneakers as she scrolled through her phone, the glow of the screen a small comfort in the bustling terminal. She was 16, tired from a week at basketball camp, but buzzing with the thought of home. Just a few hours away on a direct flight her mother had meticulously booked, a routine she'd mastered from past solo trips. The intercom crackled, announcing a delay, and a wave of groans rippled through the crowd. Aaliyah sighed, tweaking her headphone volume, trying to drown out the noise when she caught an older woman a few seats over starring, not a fleeting glance but a lingering, pointed look that pricked her nerves. She brushed it off, people stared. It wasn't new. But the woman's pinched expression gnawed at her, a quiet unease settling in her gut as she shifted in her seat, pretending not to notice. Minutes later, a uniformed airport worker approached, middle-aged, stiff-backed, his face a mask of bureaucratic indifference, and stopped in front of her, prompting her to slip out an earbud as he spoke. "Excuse me, miss, can I see your boarding pass?" Aaliyah blinked, caught off guard. Sure," she mumbled, fishing it from her hoodie pocket and handing it over, watching him flip it back and forth like he was hunting for a flaw. "Are you traveling alone?" he asked, and she nodded. "Yeah, I do this all the time." Her voice steady, though a flicker of confusion stirred. "Why her? Why now?" He returned the pass but didn't budge. "I need your ID too," he pressed, and she hesitated, scanning the gate. Families, businessmen, couples, none of them fielding the same scrutiny, her unease blooming into something sharper as she pulled her school ID from her wallet and handed it over. He barely glanced at it before firing off. "Where are your parents?" And Aaliyah frowned. "I'm 16. I don't need them with me." Her tone edging into defiance as the air thickened, the situation tilting into something she recognized but didn't want to name. Not yet. The man pursed his lips, nodded curtly, "Stay here a moment," and walked off, leaving her clutching her phone tighter, her pulse ticking up as she caught the staring woman now whispering to another staff member, their eyes darting her way. Aaliyah wasn't naive. She'd felt this before, the weight of being singled out, the unspoken assumptions. But she'd never had it crash into her like this, not at an airport, not when she was just trying to get home. Two more employees approached, a wiry TSA officer and a short woman with a blazer and badge. Their voices clipped. "Miss Garrison, can you come with us?" And her heart slammed against her ribs, her gaze flicking to her phone, debating a call to her dad, but she held off, clinging to the hope this was a mix-up. "Why?" she asked, forcing calm, and the TSA officer replied, "Your ticket was flagged for a security check." His tone light but his face hard, while the woman added, "Just a random screening, nothing to worry about." Her smile tight and hollow as Aaliyah stood, gripping her backpack, her mind racing. No one else was being randomly pulled, and the whispers, the stares, told her this wasn't about security, it was about her. They led her down the terminal, her steps quick but her chest heavy, the TSA officer guiding her to a small screening room. Bare, sterile, with a stocky agent leaning against a desk, arms crossed, eyeing her like she'd already done something wrong. "Set your bag down," the blazer woman ordered, and Aaliyah hesitated. "I don't get it, I already went through security," her voice steady but fraying as the stocky man stepped forward. "We need to ask a few questions, that's all." "Where are you flying to?" He started and she answered, "Indianapolis." Then, "My mom, to who bought your ticket." Her frustration mounting as they pressed, "You're traveling alone?" And she snapped, "Yeah, like I said." Their exchanged glances fueling her suspicion. This wasn't routine, it was targeted, and as they scribbled notes, ignoring her, why does this matter? She felt the walls closing in, a teenager caught in a net she hadn't woven, with no idea how deep it would go. Aaliyah stood in the stark screening room, her backpack at her feet, the stocky agent's gaze raking over her as the blazer woman scribbled on her clipboard, the air thick with attention she couldn't shake. "Do you have a return ticket?" the TSA officer asked, and she frowned. "No, I live there." Her voice tight as she crossed her arms, the questions piling up like bricks. "Why this? Why now?" "Family in Phoenix." The woman pressed, and Aaliyah sighed. "My uncle, I was here for basketball camp. Why does that matter?" But her question hung unanswered, the woman jotting more notes as the stocky man loomed closer, his presence a silent pressure she couldn't dodge. "How long were you in Phoenix?" the woman continued, and Aaliyah's chest burned. This wasn't normal, not the casual checks she'd breezed through on past flights, her fingers curling into her bag strap as she muttered, "This is ridiculous," the words slipping out before she could stop them, earning a sharp "excuse me" from the stocky man, his tone a warning she refused to heed. She exhaled hard, jaw clenching. I just don't get why I'm being questioned like this. And the woman finally met her eyes. Your ticket was flagged, it happens. A flimsy excuse that crumbled when Aaliyah scoffed. To who? I don't see anyone else getting stopped. The silence that followed heavy with unspoken truth. The stocky man edged forward. Are you refusing to cooperate, miss? And her stomach lurched. No, But he cut her off. We suggest you answer without attitude. His voice slicing through her face flushing as she swallowed a surge of anger, muttering, fine, through gritted teeth. Ever been questioned by airport security before? The woman asked, and Aaliyah's fingers twitched. No, then no again to issues with law enforcement. Her frustration boiling as they probed. Any cash on you? And she stared, baffled. Why would that? No, just my debit card. Her patience fraying as the woman scribbled yet again. The interrogation a maze with no exit in sight. Step over here, the woman said, pointing, and Aaliyah's breath caught. Wait, why? Only to be met with, we need to check your bag, a demand that stung. She'd already cleared security, her stuff scanned, but the TSA officer stiffened. Are you refusing a bag search? And she froze, pulse hammering, trapped between defiance and compliance. If she said no, they'd escalate. If she said yes, they'd rummage anyway. She stepped back, and the stocky man reached for his radio. We might need additional assistance. His words a threat that snapped her resolve. For what? She demanded, voice rising. I haven't done anything. The woman's smile was thin. If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to worry about. But Aaliyah's vision blurred with fury. This wasn't about hiding. It was about them, their assumptions, their power trip, and she unzipped her bag, shoving it forward. Go ahead, her hands trembling as she braced for the violation. The stocky man dove in, rifling through her clothes, her journal, a charger, a half-empty bag of Skittles, then flipped it upside down, shaking it until a pen clattered out. Nothing else, no contraband, just a teenager's life laid bare. He traded a glance with the TSA officer, a silent admission of their empty hunt, and the woman nodded. You can put it back. Her tone flat as Aaliyah snatched her things, stuffing them in with shaky hands, her anger simmering beneath a forced calm. Then the woman's voice cut again. One last thing, stand against the wall, and Aaliyah's stomach twisted. Why? Met with, we need your picture for documentation, a request that broke her restraint. No, she said, firm and final, the stocky man's face darkening. Miss. But she snapped. No, this is too much, stepping back as he barked into his radio. Security to Terminal 4 secondary screening, her hands shaking as the room shrank, the weight of their scrutiny crushing her. She'd done nothing, yet here she was, a risk in their eyes, and as reinforcements loomed, she knew this was spiraling beyond her control. Aaliyah's pulse thundered in her ears as the security officer strode into the cramped screening room, his broad shoulders filling the doorway, his badge glinting under the fluorescent lights, a hardened face scanning the scene with the weariness of decades spent wrangling airport disputes. What's the issue? He asked, voice gruff, eyes flicking between the TSA agents and her, and the stocky man gestured her way. She's refusing to comply with standard procedures, his tone accusing as the blazer woman crossed her arms. We asked for a simple photo, and she's making it difficult. Aaliyah's jaw tightened. That's not true, she shot back, gripping her backpack strap. I shouldn't have to do this, I've done nothing wrong. Her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, but the security officer exhaled through his nose, shifting his weight. Miss, if they want a photo, just take it and you're on your way. His impatience clear as he dismissed her protest with a wave. She shook her head. No, I shouldn't have to be on my way. I should be at my gate like everyone else. The tension coiling tighter as the TSA officer's voice dropped. Either you comply or we escalate this. A threat that hung heavy, her breath catching as she demanded. Escalate to what? Arresting me for sitting at my gate. The woman clicked her pen. You're causing a scene, Miss Garrison, and Aaliyah let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. I'm causing a scene? You dragged me in here. I didn't do anything. The stocky man stepped closer. You need to calm down. And her hands shook, not just fear now, but a rising tide of anger. She glanced at the open doorway, passengers drifting by, oblivious, wondering if a scream would draw help or just paint her as the troublemaker they wanted her to be. The security officer rubbed his temple. Look, kid, if you won't cooperate, we'll have to remove you from the airport. And Aaliyah's stomach plummeted. What? Her voice cracking as the stocky man added, matter of fact, you're a potential security risk. The words slamming into her like a punch. A security risk, she echoed. I'm a 16-year-old girl trying to get home. But the woman shrugged. That's not our problem anymore. Her indifference a cold slap as the security officer stepped aside, motioning to the door. Come on, we'll escort you out. Aaliyah's legs locked, disbelief rooting her in place. Was this real, being tossed out for nothing? And she forced a breath. I want to call my dad. Her voice firm despite the chaos swirling inside, the stocky man scoffing. That's not necessary, only for her to snap. Like hell it's not, yanking her phone out and hitting call before they could stop her. The ringing cut through the silence. 1-2 then. Aaliyah. Her father's voice calm, steady, a lifeline in the storm, and she exhaled shakily. Dad, I need you now. The room stilling as the agents froze, caught off guard. What's going on? He asked, sharper now, and she turned slightly, shielding the call. They're kicking me out of the airport. Her words trembling as the stocky man barked. Miss, end the call, but she gripped the phone tighter. No, you can't just throw me out without. I'm on my way. Her father cut in, his certainty a rock she clung to, and the security officer muttered. If she doesn't leave willingly, we'll call airport police. A threat her dad must have heard because he said, low and fierce, don't move, don't say another word. I'll be there in 5 minutes. The line clicking off as the room shifted, the agent's confidence flickering. They'd assumed she was alone, defenseless, but they were wrong, and soon they'd face Taryn Garrison, a force they couldn't bully into silence. The next 5 minutes stretched into forever. Aaliyah standing rigid in the screening room, arms crossed. Her phone a lifeline clutched in her hand as the security officer, TSA agents, and Blazer woman hovered in uneasy silence, their earlier bravado dimming under the weight of her father's imminent arrival. The muffled hum of the terminal seeped through. Footsteps, luggage wheels, intercom crackles. A surreal backdrop to the tension coiling around her, her breath shallow as she braced for what came next. Knowing Taryn Garrison wasn't just any dad, but a civil rights attorney whose name carried a reputation they'd soon regret tangling with. Then came the sound, deliberate, heavy footsteps, not rushed but commanding, and a tall, broad-shouldered man in a navy suit stepped in, salt and pepper beard trimmed sharp, his eyes sweeping the room in a heartbeat, assessing every detail with a precision that made the air shift. Aaliyah, he said, voice low, and she exhaled. Dad. Relief flooding her as he barely glanced her way before locking onto the security officer. Who's in charge here? The officer straightened. For what, sir? This is a restricted area. But Taryn's reply was ice cold. Not anymore, pulling out his phone. I just spoke to the airport's general counsel. They know I'm here. Now someone explain why my daughter was detained and threatened with removal. The Blazer woman, Patricia, cleared her throat. Sir, we... But he cut her off. Name. And she faltered, Patricia Dwan, Airport Administration, while the TSA officer swallowed. James Wilcox. Their unease palpable as Taryn stepped forward. James, Patricia, my daughter was at her gate, minding her business, and you pulled her in here, searched her bag, questioned her without cause, and threatened to kick her out. Why? Aaliyah watched, chest tight, wanting them to say it, admit they'd targeted her for how she looked. But the stocky agent jumped in. Her ticket was flagged for screening, and Taryn's brow arched. Really? How many others on that flight were flagged? Silence answering louder than words, his smirk cutting through their flimsy excuse. Sir, this was standard protocol, Patricia tried, shifting uncomfortably, but Taryn's voice dropped. No, it wasn't. You singled her out, harassed her, treated her like a criminal. His words ablade as Wilcox stammered. We followed security procedures, only for Taryn to snap. You abused them, the room falling dead quiet. He reached into his wallet, sliding a card onto the desk. My office will file a formal complaint with TSA and Airport Administration. If needed, we'll pursue legal action for racial discrimination and unlawful detainment. His tone final, Aaliyah's heart swelling as Patricia swallowed. Sir, I... Save it, he said, pocketing his phone. You only regret it because I showed up. He turned to Aaliyah, his expression softening. You okay? And she nodded, throat tight, unable to speak as he placed a hand on her shoulder, then faced the group again. You're going to walk her back to her gate, personally, and apologize. His command leaving no room for argument, their nervous glances betraying the power shift they couldn't undo. The walk back was a silent march, Aaliyah feeling every stare as Patricia, Wilcox, and the security officer trailed behind her and her father, their earlier swagger replaced by a wish to vanish. Taryn's presence a wall of authority beside her, his quiet more unnerving than any shout. At the gate, her seat sat empty, her bag untouched, as if the ordeal hadn't happened. But it had, and everything had changed. Taryn folded his arms, well. And Patricia muttered, "Miss Garrison, we apologize for the inconvenience." Her voice stiff, Aaliyah arching a brow. "That's it." As Wilcox added, "We regret the misunderstanding," prompting a sharp laugh from Taryn. "Misunderstanding? No, you knew exactly what you were doing." His words a hammer on their fragile excuses, leaving them scrambling as the terminal's eyes turned their way, a reckoning they couldn't outrun. Aaliyah stood by her gate, the weight of the ordeal still pressing on her chest as Taryn's sharp laugh cut through Patricia's and Wilcox's weak apologies, their inconvenience and misunderstanding excuses crumbling under his unrelenting gaze, the terminal's hum buzzing around them like a distant storm. "You knew exactly what you were doing," he said, voice low and lethal, and Patricia's hands twitched. "Sir, we—" But he silenced her with a tilt of his head. "Do you have children?" His question soft yet piercing, her hesitant yes, drawing a slow nod from him. "Imagine this was your child, treated like a criminal for no reason, scared, humiliated. Would regret the misunderstanding be enough for you?" She looked away, the reality sinking in, Aaliyah's chest tightening as she watched. Maybe they'd done this before, picked out kids like her, justified it as protocol. But this time they'd hit a wall they couldn't climb, and the murmurs of onlookers grew, passengers now piecing together her return, flanked by her father's quiet fury. "Do you know who I am?" Taryn asked, glancing around the terminal before locking eyes with them again, Patricia's face tightening. "Yes, sir." And he nodded. "Good. Then you know this isn't over." His voice smooth, controlled, a promise, not a threat. Wilcox shifted. "Sir, if you're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting," Taryn cut in. "I'm telling you there'll be a formal complaint, an investigation, and when this hits the public, you'll answer for every choice you made today." His words landing like stones, Patricia paling as the weight of headlines, backlash, maybe even job loss dawned on them. Their assumption she'd slink away, now a costly misstep. He turned to the security officer. "I want the names of everyone involved, a written report on why she was detained, before she boards." And the man nodded stiffly. "I'll have it sent immediately," scrambling under the pressure as Aaliyah gripped her backpack, hands still trembling, not from fear now, but a flicker of something new, strength, maybe, borrowed from her dad's unshakable stand. Patricia straightened, lips pursed. "Miss Garrison, we truly—" But Aaliyah cut her off. "Save it." Her voice firm, done with their hollow words, and Taryn checked his watch. "Her flight boards in 10 minutes. You've wasted enough of her time." Guiding her back to her seat with a steady hand, the staff left frozen, unsure whether to stay or flee. The power flipped in a way they couldn't unsee. As she sat, Taryn leaned against the seat beside her, exhaling, "You okay?" And she nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think so." The lump in her throat easing, though the weight lingered. She wasn't sure she fully meant it, but with him there, she didn't have to face it alone. The ordeal no longer just hers to carry as he pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen, crafting something she knew would ripple far beyond this gate. Within minutes, his statement hit online, posted to his firm's site, shared across social media. A raw, unembellished account of her detention, names included, the truth laid bare, and Aaliyah refreshed her screen, stomach twisting as comments flooded in. "Unbelievable. This happens too often. Sue them. Could have been my daughter." The surreal rush of strangers reacting to her nightmare making her glance at him. "Do you think this'll change anything?" Taryn folded his hands. "It already has." His certainty grounding her as a woman a few rows ahead gave her a small, knowing nod. A man passing by eyeing them with an unreadable look. Whether from the post or the confrontation, she wasn't invisible anymore, the gate's energy shifting as the intercom crackled. "Flight 287 to Indianapolis now boarding." And Taryn stood, adjusting his jacket. "Come on, kid, time to go home." The staff still lingering in the background, faces tight, knowing their reckoning was just beginning. Aaliyah settled into her window seat on Flight 287, the cool glass pressing against her forehead as she exhaled. The plane's hum a faint comfort after the storm that had upended her day at Phoenix Sky Harbor, her father's steady, "Time to go home," still echoing as he'd seen her off at the gate. She replayed it all, the airport worker's initial, "Can I see your boarding pass?" Sparking a chain of questions, the screening room's relentless probing, her bag shaken out. The security risk label slapped on her for daring to exist, each moment a thread in a tapestry of humiliation she hadn't asked for. Patricia, Wilcox, and the security officer had trailed them back, their weak apologies, inconvenience, misunderstanding, shredded by Terrans, you knew what you were doing. His presence flipping their power into panic, and now, as the plane taxied, she saw them in her mind's eye, huddled in the terminal, faces tight, bracing for the fallout her dad had promised, a complaint and investigation they couldn't dodge. Her phone buzzed in her lap, still clutched tight from that desperate call. "Dad, I need you now." And she opened it, his post blazing across the screen, a stark recounting of her ordeal that had already ricocheted online, comments piling up. "Disgraceful. This is why we fight. They'll pay." Her chest tightening as the numbers climbed, thousands sharing, strangers' voices amplifying hers, a surreal shift from the isolation of that room where she'd felt so small. She asked him, "Will this change anything?" And it already has stuck with her, proven by the woman's nod at the gate, the man's glance. People were watching now, not just at her, but for her, the weight of being seen both a balm and a burden as the plane lifted off, the desert shrinking below. She typed her own words. "I was humiliated today, but I wasn't alone." Hesitating before hitting post, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from the rawness of claiming her story, knowing it would land before she did. Back at the start, it had been routine, hoodie up, headphones on, waiting for her flight until that woman's stare and the workers' questions yanked her into a spotlight she didn't want. "Where are your parents?" And ID too, singling her out when no one else faced the same. The screening room had escalated it, bags searched. Security risk threats, her no to a photo sparking their "we'll remove you." A nightmare she'd fought with shaky defiance until her dad's voice cut through. "I'll be there in 5, turning their smug control into scrambling regret. His arrival, navy suit, sharp eyes, had flipped the script. Why was she detained? Met with flimsy, flagged ticket lies, his card on the desk a promise of consequences they couldn't outrun. And that walk back, their apologies forced and hollow, had left them exposed. Passengers whispering, the terminal a stage for their unraveling. By the time she landed in Indianapolis, her post had exploded. Over 10,000 shares, her words. "I wasn't alone." A spark in a fire her father had lit. His legal salvo already trending, their names, Patricia Dwan, James Wilcox, tied to a story spiraling beyond their grasp. She lived his cases before, tales of families he'd fought for, but this was hers. 16, targeted, pushed, now heard. The planes descent a quiet triumph as she pictured them back there, huddling, knowing silence wasn't an option anymore. The flight attendant. Welcome home felt bigger, her dad's lessons no longer abstract but carved into her bones. She'd been powerless, then powerful, and as she grabbed her bag, stepping into the familiar airport, she knew this wasn't just her win. It was a crack in a wall too many had faced, a voice that wouldn't fade, a fight that had only begun. Aaliyah stepped off the plane into Indianapolis International Airport, the familiar hum of the terminal wrapping around her like a soft echo of home, her backpack slung over one shoulder as she moved through the crowd, her phone still warm from the post that had erupted mid-flight. "I was humiliated today, but I was alone." Now a beacon poolsing with over 10,000 shares. The weight of Phoenix Sky Harbor lingered, those first stairs, the workers' boarding pass. Spiraling into a screening room trap, her bag rummaged, her defiance met with security risk threats, all of it a blur until her father's voice, "I'm on my way," had sliced through, his arrival flipping the script on Patricia, Wilcox, and their smug control. She replayed his calm fury. Why was she detained? Their flagged ticket excuse collapsing under his "you abused" procedures. The walk back to the gate a quiet victory as their apologies faltered. Passengers' eyes tracking the shift, and now here she felt the ground steady beneath her, a 16-year-old who'd faced a storm and come out louder. Her dad's post had ignited it. Names, details, a civil rights attorney's precision unleashed online, trending as she'd soared over the Midwest. Comments like "unacceptable." And this is systemic, flooding in, strangers' outrage weaving with her own, a chorus she hadn't expected when she'd typed her own words, hands shaking above the clouds. She asked him, "Will this change anything?" And it already has, rang true, back at the gate, that woman's nod, the man's glance, the terminal's shift from indifference to attention. All proof she wasn't invisible anymore, her story no longer hers alone, but a spark catching fire. She pulled her hoodie tighter, weaving through baggage claim, the memory of their faces. Patricia's tight lips, Wilcox's stiff nod. Etched in her mind, their regret too late as Terrans, There'll be an investigation loomed, a promise they'd underestimated just like they'd underestimated her. It had started so small, sinking into that plastic chair, headphones on, waiting for a routine flight until the older woman's stare and the workers' questions yanked her into a spotlight. "Where are your parents?" And ID 2 singling her out when no one else flinched. The screening room had turned it brutal, bag flipped. Ever been questioned before? Drilling into her no to a photo, sparking there, "We'll remove you." A power play she'd met with a call, "Dad, I need you." His 5-minute countdown dismantling their game. His suit, his sharp "Who's in charge?" had unraveled them card on the desk, legal action for discrimination. Their forced march back to her gate, a public humbling, passengers whispering as she reclaimed her seat. The power flipped, their assumptions exposed, a reckoning they couldn't out-talk or outrun. Now, stepping into the cool night air outside the airport, she saw her mom waiting, arms open, and sank into the hug, the weight of the day spilling out. "They tried to kick me out, Mom." Her mother. "Your dad told me soft but fierce," a shared understanding of what she'd endured. Her post, his statement, the shares. It was bigger now, a ripple she'd felt at 30,000 feet, a voice that had cracked silence wide open, and as they drove home, she refreshed her screen, the numbers climbing. "This could have been me." "Fight back," echoing her dad's tales of cases, now hers lived, not just heard. She wasn't just a teenager anymore. She'd been targeted, pushed, lifted, and as the city lights blurred past, she knew Phoenix wasn't the end. It was the start, a lesson in speaking up, a story that wouldn't fade, a fight she'd carry forward. Aaliyah sat in the passenger seat, the hum of the car a steady pulse as Indianapolis unfolded beyond the window. Her mom's quiet, "You're safe now." A balm after the chaos of Phoenix Sky Harbor, where a simple wait for a flight had spiraled into a battle she'd never seen coming. Her phone glowed in her lap, her post. "I was humiliated today, but I was alone." Now a wildfire with thousands of shares, her dad's legal salvo amplifying it, a raw account of her detention that had strangers raging. Unbelievable. "This happens too often," their voices merging with hers in a way that still felt unreal, a 16-year-old's nightmare turned megaphone. She started that day sinking into a gate chair, hoodie up, headphones on until stairs and boarding pass. Yanked her into a screening room, bag searched. Security risk threats, her defiance met with "We'll remove you." A power trip shattered by her call, "Dad, I need you," and Taryn's arrival. A Navy-suited force dismantling their game with "Why was she detained?" and a promise of consequences they couldn't dodge. The drive home was quiet, her mom's hand squeezing hers as she replayed it. The older woman's lingering look, the workers' questions, the TSA's flagged ticket lie crumbling under her dad's "You abused procedures." His card on the desk, a ticking clock of accountability. Their forced apologies at the gate, a hollow echo as passengers watched. Her post had hit mid-flight, her shaky, "Will this change anything?" Answered by his, "It already has," proven by nods and glances, the terminal shifting, her invisibility erased. And now, pulling into their driveway, she saw her dad's car, home where this fight would grow, not end. She lived his stories, families he'd fought for. But this was hers, targeted for how she looked, pushed until she pushed back, her voice now a crack in a wall too many had hit. The shares climbing as she stepped inside, the weight lifting with every "This could have been my daughter" lighting up her screen. It wasn't over. Patricia Wilcox, the security officer, their tight faces as she'd boarded, knew the investigation loomed, headlines brewing, their jobs on the line because they'd assumed she'd stay silent, assumed wrong. Her dad waited in the kitchen. "You okay, kid?" His voice soft, and she nodded. "Yeah." Stronger now, the lump gone, his "We'll make this right," a vow she'd seen him keep before, now for her, his post a match, hers gasoline, the fire spreading as she sat, refreshing. "Sue them. Hold them accountable," a chorus she'd joined. She'd been powerless in that room, bag flipped. No to a photo sparking threats. Until his "I'll be there in 5" flipped it, their walk back a public unraveling, the terminal a witness, her seat reclaimed, a quiet triumph that roared online, a lesson in speaking up she'd carry forward, not just for her but for every kid who'd felt that weight. Aaliyah leaned back, the house settling around her, her mom. "I'm proud of you," sinking in as she thought of that gate, routine until it wasn't, a stare turning into a standoff, her call turning panic into power, her dad. "There'll be consequences," turning silence into noise. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was theirs, the ones who'd nodded, the ones who'd shared, the ones who'd faced it too, and as her phone buzzed, 15,000 shares now, she knew it wouldn't fade. It would echo, demand change, because silence wasn't an option, not after today. She'd landed, but the fight hadn't. Her voice mattered, and with her dad beside her, it would keep ringing, a crack widening, a truth they couldn't bury, a start she'd never let end.